All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's day 31, episode 32, 40 days of 4VKM. And this is a very special episode, very short, but I like it so much because it really hits home how important WWE and wrestling in general has been to our national culture, our national identity as Americans, right? We're going to walk you through it. The name of the video is called WWE, The Fabric of America. And it was released on 8/29/2022. Now, the video starts off, speaking of Fabric of America, there used to be a big movie production company called RKO Pictures. RKO, one of the founding partners in that was Joseph Kennedy, the father of JFK. So he was in the film business, right? When I had asked Rock, what are the connections between the Kennedys and the McMahons, one of the little tidbits he threw out was, they were both in the entertainment industry at the same time, so there might have been some crossover there between the two. So maybe that is part of it, right? But what I found interesting that happened after this, if you look at my opening clip, we're showing the intro to RKO Pictures, and that's the intro to this video. And RKO, as we know, is the finishing move of Randy Orton. He hits the RKO out of nowhere. He's been doing it for a very long time. So the RKO I chose, and the reason why I chose this is because I wanted to hit that RKO out of nowhere line. And the one line that I remembered from where that was said when he hit the RKO was WrestleMania 27. 27, where actually it was the first WrestleMania I was at. And it was Randy Orton versus CM Punk. CM Punk goes to do a springboard, lands right into an RKO. Josh Matthews, the announcer, says, RKO out of nowhere, right? So that's really what I was trying to capture. CM Punk knocked out here. Now, what is also happening at the time? CM Punk is in AEW, and he's the AEW champion, and he does this press conference 6 days later, where he calls out everybody, his detractors within AEW, and they actually end up getting in a fight. He gets hurt at that event as well. Before the fight, he does this press conference. It's called the Press Conference from Hell, where he just eviscerates the company. Tony Khan standing next to him, the owner of the company. He just eviscerates everybody, and then basically says, hey, if you got a problem with it, come see me backstage. And then a bunch of guys went and saw him backstage, got in a fight, and then CM Punk had to go away. He was suspended, so were the other guys, and at the same time, he was injured as well with a triceps injury. So, I just thought it was weird. I show CM Punk getting knocked out, RKO, and then a couple days later, he didn't get knocked out. The word is that he knocked somebody else out, but he got knocked out of action for a little bit of time. So, I thought that was very weird. Now, who's covering the video here? It's Tyrus. Tyrus is going to narrate us through this whole video because he's hosting Gutfield. Gutfield, one of the top-rated shows at the time. I think still is in its time slot. And Tyrus is a former wrestler. He was actually Snoop Dogg's bodyguard before that. Then he ended up in WWE. He was a big monster character at first, but then he debuted as this dancing Brodus Clay character who was called the Funkasaurus, and he had the Funkadactyls that would come out and dance with him, and he was just a fun character, right? And I remember when he debuted, everybody thought he was going to be this big mean monster, and then he ended up being this big dancing guy, fun-loving guy, which kind of threw everybody off, but it was great. It was really good, right? So he's talking about how wrestling is part of the fabric of America. It's ingrained in our culture, right? And he's going to lay out all the examples why. And this was like a perfect little advertisement for 4VKM, to be honest with you. One of the things he talks about is all of the actors that have been in Hollywood, right? He mentions Batista. He mentions Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. Hey, you want a peanut? He was in The Princess Bride, right? So, The Rock, we know, became the biggest Hollywood star that there is. John Cena, same deal. He's kind of at where The Rock was, back in the beginning of The Rock's career. So we'll call it early 2000s, right? He's kind of doing all those stupid movies. you know, but they follow a same path. And I always look back to it because people say, oh, Hollywood, you know, bad. If you go to Hollywood, you got to be bad, right? Well, no doubt they make you do some bad stuff in Hollywood. But, you know, I like to go back to that phrase that this guy said, infiltration instead of invasion. And we'll leave it at that. So he mentions John Cena, and he mentions John Cena's catchphrase, right? And this is where I edited a little bit, but he says, you know, John Cena's catchphrase, you can't see me. He actually stole that from, and I cut him off, and then I take snippets of Vincent Kennedy McMahon at various stages saying the word John, the word F, or the letter F, the word Kennedy, and then the letters JR, right? So he stole that phrase, you can't see me, from John F. Kennedy Jr., right? Because we can't see him either. We can't see him either. And then as Tyrus goes through that, he goes boom, 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 right? And it reminded me of all the different wrestlers that used the word boom, right? Kofi Kingston. His finishing move was the boom drop at one point. He was in a tag team called Air Boom. He'll shout out boom, boom, boom before he hits his finishing move sometime. He used to, at least, right? You also had Adam Cole, who was in NXT in WWE, and he still does the boom, I think, in AEW where he's at now. But he used to do big booms, right? He'd get the entire arena saying boom. And don't forget, there's that sign at WrestleMania in 2015, WrestleMania 31, where John Cena is facing Rusev, who's the Russian sympathizer, who's always showing Putin's face on the screen, with Lana, the Ravishing Russian. They made this big entrance of Russian tanks and everything at WrestleMania that year. John Cena wins him, beats him to become the United States champion. And what's the sign behind John? Boom, boom, boom. You know, lots of booms out there. Lots of booms out there. He mentions how wrestlers had taken over the book industry, right? So many New York Times bestsellers were written by professional wrestlers. He mentions Mick Foley, who was multi-time best-selling author. JR, Jim Ross, right? JR, good old JR. His book was called Under the Black Hat. What are the odds of that, right? Because he wore a black cowboy hat, kind of like the cowboy that showed up at the rally on 2/21/2020, the same day 4VKM started, huh? What are the odds of that? So he talks about Olympians, right? We had Olympians in WWE. They recently just got Gable Steveson, who was the gold medal winner of the last Olympic Games, I think in 2020, or I don't know if they threw it off because of the COVID, but it would have been 2020. Mark Henry was a Olympic powerlifter. Ken Patera, back in the day, he was in the Olympics. And you can't talk about the Olympics without Kurt Angle, who was the original gold medal winner in 1996, and then came on to have one of the best WWE careers anybody out there, right? So, you know, he has a good line that he uses. He says, "We have more takedowns than Twitter." And who is a famous wrestler that got banned from Twitter? It was the Big Val Boski, Val Venus, right? And he's been reinstated since in the new administration there. But Big Val Venus, he's anti-vax. He's anti a lot of things. And he's back on X now that Elon owns it, right? He talks about Sergeant Slaughter, who has retweeted 4VKM multiple times, right? He even just added me one time and, you know, was like, just Mr. Drew ENT with like a Sergeant Slaughter emoji giving 2 thumbs up. It was after he watched Crown Jewel 2, the episode I covered, I think last week some point, where they're talking about, you know, we're talking about Sergeant Slaughter in Iraq and Iran and all this other stuff. He's seen it. He loves it. He shared it a bunch of times. So shout out to you, Sergeant Slaughter. And why is he relevant? Sergeant Slaughter, he was in G.I. Joe. So, I mean, just fabric of America. G.I. Joe is fabric of America, right? WWE is fabric of America. And then politics, right? You had politics. It's written all over politics. Jesse Ventura was kind of the first one that really stepped in. He became governor of Minnesota as an independent. Jesse the Body Ventura. And where was he? I like to point this out and remind everybody because he talks a lot of shit about Donald Trump today. But where was he on 10700? That's right, 10700. Look it up. Jesse the Body Ventura was with President Trump as they were looking at Trump running for president back then. And you have Jesse and Trump together on 10700. What are the odds of that, right? Kane, who is the mayor of Knox County. President Trump shouted him out. Keep saying that. But just a couple weeks ago, he told him to run for governor of Tennessee, right? Because he's one of the most popular Republicans in Tennessee now at this point. And he is also becoming a bigger and bigger voice within the Republican Party, right? So the big red machine, Kane, could be a huge leader in the big red machine, right? So it's fun. And then obviously President Trump, right? He had all this other stuff outside of WWE, but even going back to the 80s, he called his shot. He hosted WrestleMania 4 and 5 and then became the 45th president. So come on now. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame. He went into the Hall of Fame in 2013. I was there. They upgraded my seats. I don't know why, but it was great. So, you know, they've taken over politics. You've had a lot of people run that weren't successful, right? Linda McMahon ran a couple times for the Senate. Bob Backlund ran for Congress, I think, a couple times. I think Jerry the King Lawler ran for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. He didn't win that. But, you know, you're going to have more wrestlers be politicians in the future. That's for damn sure. Including The Rock, probably. So sorry for all those people that don't like The Rock. It's going to happen. I guarantee that will happen. So, you can't even say the phrase, the American Dream, without thinking of a wrestler. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, whose son now, Cody Rhodes, is one of the biggest stars in WWE today. And what's his name? He's the American Nightmare, right? So you have the American Dream give birth to the American Nightmare. Again, it's just the fabric of America, right? He says, if you're still not convinced, you ever go to a sporting event and you hear somebody go, woo! And then you hear all these other people around go, woo, 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 woo! That's because everybody wants to be Ric Flair. The styling and profiling. Woo! Limousine riding, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing. Ric Flair, right? He's fabric of America. Even today, he sells like all these other products. He sells energy drinks. He sells marijuana, I think. He's doing it all, Ric Flair. You know, even at his age right now, Ric Flair is the fabric of America. He's in rap videos, right? He shows up at Tampa Bay Buck games, you know, as the MC. I mean, he's everywhere, Ric Flair. A fabric of America, Ric Flair. He talks about how everybody wants to be a wrestler. I know that's to be true because I wanted to be a wrestler when I was a little kid. Didn't work out. Not really in shape for it, right? But, you know, maybe I could be general manager one day. That would be my dream job for sure in the wrestling industry. But he talks about all the actors that have crossed over. Hugh Jackman, you know, William Shatner, just on and on and on. Go back to that list of guest hosts on Monday Night Raws, right? Singers. Look at Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny came into the WWE a couple times since 2021, and he's done a phenomenal job. He's had amazing matches. The fans go crazy for him, right? He takes it very serious. So it's just been nuts, right? Logan Paul now. He's the United States champion, Logan Paul. Not a fan of Logan Paul, but got to give him credit for, you know, where credit's due. He's killing it in WWE right now. Boxing. Floyd Mayweather had made an appearance in WWE. He fought The Big Show at WrestleMania 24. You also had Lennox Lewis appear one time. You've had Muhammad Ali there. At WrestleMania 1, Muhammad Ali was there. You know, and on and on and on. Football players. We had the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2, WWF versus the NFL. We talked about that in the Gridiron Gang. More recently, you had Kittle, who's playing in the Super Bowl. He was at WrestleMania last year in Los Angeles. You had Gronk, who hosted WrestleMania in 2020 when there was no fans, right? So, you know, you have all this everybody wants to be a wrestler. It's the fabric of America, right? People love wrestling. It's more popular now than it's ever been before, and nobody would ever suspect that, right? More people watch wrestling now than ever in its history, right? So, crazy. I mentioned Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali got his trash talking from watching wrestling back in the day, right? So did Don King. So did President Trump, right? They've all kind of taken elements. Trump has done, like, all of this stuff. He does it at the rallies, right? You know, Mick Foley has really mastered this and kind of exposed this, right? But Mick Foley would do what's called the cheap pop. And the cheap pop would be when you come out and you'd say, it's good to be here, right here in Boston, Massachusetts, right? And then the people in Boston, Massachusetts go crazy because you said their city name, right? So Donald Trump always takes elements of that stuff and he works that into his rallies and his speeches. Watch Trump at his rally. He plays the crowd just like a wrestling audience. And he gets the reactions that he wants them to give through that. I mean, it's a mirror of it almost, right? You had Gorilla Monsoon, who is the voice of many people's childhoods in professional wrestling, right? And when I think of Gorilla Monsoon, I think about that phrase, well, he had the phrase, the irresistible force meets the immovable object, right? That was when Hulk Hogan faced off with Andre the Giant, right? And anytime I hear Gorilla Monsoon, I think of that phrase from JFK where he goes, and gorillas by night, in his Secret Society speech, right? So, you know, they're everywhere, the WWE. Athletes, what happens? I've talked about this before. What happens when a team wins a championship in any sport? Baseball, hockey, basketball, college sports now, NFL. I promise you, this video is coming out on Super Bowl Sunday. I guarantee you will see a WWE championship belt at the end of the Super Bowl. Guarantee you, tomorrow or today. So it's you know, that's what they want, right? Because it's the fabric of America. They want their championship belt. They want to feel like WWE champion. I have a WWE championship at home. I should have brought it today. Should have brought it as a prop, right? So then, you know, Tyrus is going through all of this. You can see I'm very excited. I love talking about this stuff, right? Because it's so true. It's embedded in the culture, who we are. It's so important. And you don't know how far back it goes, right? We talked about the bloodline before. We talked about that documentary, The Jesus Strand, that I helped edit. And what's that story talk about? That story talks about Abe Lincoln and then how the descendants from there kind of all lead back to the Kennedys and Trump and all this stuff, right? And it's all one bloodline that goes back to Lincoln. And Lincoln and Trump, a lot of similarities between the two. But what was Abe Lincoln known for back in the day? He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler. He's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Abe Lincoln. He had a record of 299-1. He had 300 matches. He only lost one. So, fabric of America. Abe Lincoln, one of the most well-known presidents in history, was a wrestler, right? And then the other well-known president in history, Donald J. Trump, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. He wasn't a wrestler, but, you know, he mixed it in with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 23. That's for damn sure, right? And like I mentioned before, he called his shot. He was the host of WrestleMania 4 and 5. So, you know, Tyrus is putting Trump over here at this point, and I'm showing his entrance at the DNC, the RNC, the Republican National Convention in 2016. A lot of people took that entrance and put the Undertaker's music to it because it was very Undertaker-esque entrance that Trump made, right? There's kind of a silhouette that appears behind Tiffany blue light behind him. And he starts, you can just see his silhouette, all black, and then he walks out of it, and you can see him. And as we're showing that, I'm showing you The Undertaker, too, making that same entrance with the Tiffany blue light behind him. And why is The Undertaker important? What's he have to do with the fabric of America? Besides, he's the damn Undertaker, and everybody loves The Undertaker in wrestling. He's the representation in WWE of JFK, the dead man walking, right? The Undertaker. And why do I say that? He debuted 27 years after JFK's assassination on 11/22/1990. 27, JFK, remember that. He retired 30 years later, exactly to the day, 11/22/2020, in the Thunderdome, in front of no fans. But they had to do that date, so 11/22/2020 it was. Even though Undertaker should have been sent off with fans, they had to do the date, 11/22/2020. So, the fabric of America. What else can you say about it, right? The story of America, Tyrus ends it with, the story of wrestling is really the story of America. And I agree with that. And, you can have underdogs. You can have all these type of people from all different types of backgrounds rise up and do amazing things. You can accomplish anything in this great country, right? No matter how high the goal is, you can reach it, is what he says. And look at President Trump. He became president. President 45, host of WrestleMania 45. And like I mentioned, you'll have more wrestlers become presidents after President Trump. But it's fun, to say the least. So that's it. That's a nice little short one there. But Fabric of America, check it out. Link will be below. Don't forget to subscribe to the 4VKM podcast on YouTube. Link for that below as well. Launching 2/21/2024. And 4VKM.com, as always, for all your 4VKM episodes. You can check them out in order. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show.